Hello everyone, this is Lord Armstrong, or the Great Roberto, whoever I am today. It's been a while since I made a video, but I just want to make a video about something that I've been meaning to make one about, and I just haven't really done it. And this is about the Charles Manson murders, also known as the Tate LaBianca murders. And you may or may not know, but this case is kind of in the spotlight within recent years because of a book by Tom O'Neill called Chaos. You may have seen him on Joe Rogan. If you haven't, watch it. Go to Spotify and watch the whole thing from Joe Rogan and Tom O'Neill. It's an amazing entry into this case. That's really what got me into the case. Because, I've always known who Charles Manson was, and I know that Sharon Tate was murdered, and I know all the superficial details, but beyond that, I didn't really care, you know what I mean? I had no really interest in the case, but then once I watched this thing by Tom O'Neill, and I watched a bunch of other ones by him too, and I actually bought the book, and got into that, it began a whole new discovery of what really went on with this. And mainly today, the main thing I want to talk about today is just what happened at Sharon Tate's house on the murder night. Mainly from a forensic standpoint, because the official story of what happened that night, because the Tate LaBianca murders were basically two murders that happened on back-to-back nights. And Sharon Tate and her friends were murdered the first night, August 8th into 9th, 1969. It happened like at midnight, basically exactly at midnight. And the next night, the other murders happened and whatnot. But the main thing I want to talk about is the Sharon Tate aspect of the murders. Okay, what happened forensically. Because the official story is, what happened is that the killers were, that we know of, were Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian. They were the main four who went there, that we know of. There's speculation there may have been more, but those are the ones we know about. They went there, they broke into the house, they found, and the victims who were there that night were Stephen Parent was a kid who was killed. He was an 18-year-old innocent-looking kid who really wasn't so innocent, but I'm not going to talk about that. And then Jay Sebring, Sharon Tate, Wojtek Frykowski, and Abigail Folger, the coffee heiress Abigail Folger, were all murdered that night. There was actually one survivor in the back property named William Garrettson, but I'm not really going to talk about him that much. The main thing I want to talk about is the murders and what I think happened based on forensics, basically. Because the official story is the killers went into the house, they found Frykowski on the couch sleeping, and the official story is that Abigail Folger was in her bedroom reading, and Jay Sebring and Sharon Tate were in Sharon's room just hanging out. And all of this happened to the west of the living room, and then the official story again is that Abigail Folger, Tate, and Sebring were brought into the living room, and they were murdered there, and that was it. And Sharon Tate and Sebring never left that living room, and they were murdered there, and that was it. That's the official story. But now there's one piece of contradictory evidence that says that can't be true. And that is on the front porch, there was two massive puddles of blood. The biggest puddle of blood was from Jay Sebring. It was a massive puddle of blood that leaked over onto the flower bed and stuff like that. It was a huge puddle of blood. And the other puddle of blood wasn't as big, but it was still pretty big and significant, was from Sharon Tate herself. And then that was it. So, but according to the official story, they never went near there. So how did all that blood get there? One of the biggest questions. Now, there's other speculations out there about what happened, and people have their stories of what went on and stuff like that. But here's what I think happened based on this and based on what we know. Is the killers showed up at the house just before midnight, August 8th, and they ran into Stephen Parent, and they shot him. Okay, and they shot him. And the noise, and there was a lot of commotion with that, because not only was he shot, but he also rammed his car into the fence trying to get away from them. So, because the house on the Cielo Drive is where it was. It was at the end of a hill, on top of a hill, and there was a gate. There was a gate and all that. And Stephen Parent, in an effort to try to get away from being shot by these guys, put his car in reverse and slammed into a fence. And he was eventually shot. And then his car was moved at one point. But so he was shot, and the commotion of the crashing the car and all that stuff happened. He was shot 4 times and stabbed. But I think he was just stabbed in the hand. And now here's the thing where things start to deviate from the official story. Now what I'm thinking happened is that commotion from that interaction in the driveway alerted Jay Sebring. Okay, and then Jay Sebring came out on the front porch, and then as soon as he entered the porch, as soon as he came out onto the porch to investigate what was going on, he was immediately shot by Tex Watson from a distance. And the reason I say that is because Jay Sebring was shot, and there was no powder residue on his body, okay, indicating he was shot from a distance. Now, if he was shot inside the house, the way they say it happened, it's more than likely he would have been shot. There would have been powder residue on his body, but there's more evidence that says he wasn't shot where he was found in the house either, which I'll get into in a minute. But so he was shot by Tex Watson as soon as he entered the porch to investigate what was going on, and then he was approached and stabbed repeatedly. And also the wound that Jay suffered, he was shot in the upper torso, and it grazed his left bicep and then entered his torso, and that is the same direction as the driveway. So I'm saying as soon as he walked out on the porch, he was immediately shot, and it grazed his upper bicep and then went into his torso, and that dropped him to the ground, and then he was jumped on and stabbed repeatedly. And now my speculation is that this commotion caused Sharon Tate to come out and investigate what happened, and I'm speculating that she was immediately assaulted by Tex Watson on the porch. And now some of the wounds of Sharon Tate, she had 2 slash wounds on her left arm, indicating that she raped. One of the things, if you're being attacked, is to cover your head and cover yourself, right? And she had 2 defensive slash wounds on her forearm. And then what I'm speculating happened is she attempted to turn and run away. Now keep in mind, Sharon Tate was 8.5 months pregnant while this was going on. And if you want to know more about the finer details of what happened in the case, just look online and stuff like that to sort of fill in the blanks of what I'm talking about. Because if you're new to this case, you're going to be like, what the fuck am I talking about? So you need to have kind of a background of the case already to understand what I'm getting at. And because if I try to cover the whole thing, this video would just be way, way too long. So Sharon Tate was immediately attacked on the porch, right? And then after she was cut, it's my speculation that she then attempted to turn around and run, right? And then she was stabbed in the back. Now, this is important because she had most of her stab wounds were in the back on the left side of her body, right? Now, some people think it's because she was stabbed by a left-handed person, and Susan Atkins was left-handed. But the angle of the wounds suggest that if Sharon was facing me and she turned to her right to run back into the house, and then she was stabbed in the left from a person who was right-handed, on her back the wounds angled downward at a 45-degree angle. So if you're stabbing like this, you can see how the blade would be 45 degrees, and most of the wounds are like that. Now, she may have dropped to the ground because of that, or she may have ran because of that. But whatever happened, there was a lot of blood right on the porch from her. Now, what happened after that is she may have, now this is pure speculation, but her body was ultimately found right in front of the couch in the living room, And that is where she lost most of her blood, is where she was found, okay? And now if you look at pictures, you can go online and look at pictures of this. There's a good site called CieloDrive.com. It has a ton of pictures, a lot of grisly pictures if you want to see that stuff. And it shows where Sharon Tate's body found. There was a massive puddle of blood where she was found, and it's deep set into the rug. I mean, she bled out there. That's where she died. That's where she bled out. So I'm speculating that she was either carried into the house, but I think she ran based on the way her body was. I think she ran and fell over the couch because there was blood on the couch, and she fell over the couch and landed in front of the couch, and that's where she may have been stabbed more there, but the pathway from the front porch to where she was found, something happened, okay? And then, because she was stabbed in the front too, and there was splatterings of her blood in the hallway, and then on the cases there was some trunks in the that were just dropped off that day. As a matter of fact, there was some trunks because Sharon had just come home from Italy, or either Italy or England, or the UK, somewhere over there. She was filming a movie, and she had just come home, like like a week before or something, like 2 weeks before that. She had just got home, and then she was, I speculate she ran into the house and tripped over the couch and fell over the couch, and her body landed where it was, and she may have been stabbed again. Now, another thing that happened with that was she was attempted to be hanged. They tried to hang her. Now another key point of this is there's people who speculate that all happened later, because there's speculation that Charlie and a bunch of people went back to the house to try to make the scene look different. And the speculation is that they were trying to, just confuse the cops and stuff like that. And then the speculation is that they tried to hang her then. Or the speculation is that they moved the body then. But that's not true, because the nature of the forensics of the body, if a body's moved after it dies, you can tell it was moved, because the blood settles, like the blood pools in the body and stuff like that. So if it was moved, they would have known. So so Sharon definitely died and bled out where she was found. And then they tried to hang her too. But now, if you look at the crime scene photos of the rope that was tied around her neck, because there was a rope tied around her neck and a rope tied around Jay Sebring's neck, and then it was draped over the beam in the house. It was sort of an open loft, and there was two beams that ran across, and the rope was thrown over that. And now my speculation is that they tried to hang her. But these are hippies. These are drugged out hippies, right? And they're not going to know how heavy a body is at that body weight. And it was also, the angle of the rope was a really weird, obscene angle. It was almost like a 45-degree angle from Sharon's body to the beam. And I'm speculating that they tried to hoist her body up, and they realized she was too heavy. Because there was also sort of drag marks on her body too. Like the blood on her body was sort of, it shows that her body was dragged and moved at some point, okay? And now that could have been, now she may have been dragged into the house and put there, but I don't think so, because if they did that, they would have placed her in a better position to be hanged, not where she was, in the awkward angle of the rope. So I'm thinking that she just ran into the house, fell over the couch, and may have been stabbed again there, because she was stabbed in the front too a couple times and stuff. But and then they tried to hang her, so they put a rope around her neck, tried to hang her, but the body is just way too heavy. I mean, not only is she, just trying to hang a body, but that weird angle and all that stuff, they just couldn't do it, and they abandoned it. Now, while this is going on, Jay Sebring is on the front porch bleeding out. So eventually Jay Sebring is brought into the house and placed where he was. Now, he may have still been alive, but he may have just died, but it happened relatively quickly. Because a key thing is when you look at crime scene photos of Jay Sebring's body and where he was found, there's a very, very small puddle of blood indicating that he did not bleed out there. That he most of his blood loss was on the front porch, but then they brought him in the house for some reason, again, to make the scene look witchy. They were instructed allegedly to make the scene look witchy. And But now you got to be asking, okay, well, while this is going on, there's still two more victims who need to be accounted for, and that's Frykowski and Abigail Folger. And again, I think this all happened very quickly. I think, the initial contact, the thing on the porch, and then while they were killing Sharon, there was Frykowski and Abigail Folger to deal with. Now, Abigail Folger ended up running. Now, where were they in the house? Who knows? We don't exactly know. They could have been in their room. Frykowski could have been in the living room, and he probably was. And Abigail Folger may have been in her room, but I think she would have walked out into the living room because of the commotion. Because killing people is going to be very loud. There's going to be a lot of screaming. There's going to be a lot of chaos going on. So she may have walked into the living room. But now what happened is Abigail Folger ended up running down the hallway out Sharon's room, because there was a door that led out to the pool area in Sharon's bedroom, and that's where Abigail Folger ran out. Now, she was bleeding when she did it, so she was probably attacked as she tried to investigate what was going on in the living room, and she was probably cut, and that probably made her run. So she was dripping blood. She was dripping blood down the hallway and out the door to where she was, and then she ran out the door, and it looked like she was trying to run for the hill, because the house is built on a hill, and there's a fence there, and if you jump over the fence, you could have went down this hill. It's a pretty steep hill, but it's better than being stabbed to death, and it looks like she was trying to run for that. But then she was overtaken by Patricia Krenwinkel. She was overtaken by her and stabbed by Krenwinkel on the front lawn. Now, Frykowski, he ran out the front door, okay, and because remember, the speculation in the beginning is that he was on the couch sleeping, and then they went and found him, but we know that didn't really happen. So then he may have still been in there. He could have been in the living room, because he ran out the front door. If he was anywhere else but the living room, he would have probably ran out the other door too. Now, he may have even confronted Tex Watson too, because Frykowski was a fighter. He was a scrapper. He was from Poland, just like Sharon's husband, Polanski. Roman Polanski was from Poland, and so was Frykowski. They were friends. And then that's why Frykowski was there, because he was a friend of Polanski's, and Polanski kind of felt bad for him because he was a loser and stuff. And and he was staying there watching the house. He was also a drug dealer and all this stuff, but I'll get more into that later. But regardless of whatever happened, Frykowski ended up running out the front door, and he was chased down by Tex Watson, but he was shot first while he was running. So he was running out the door, and at some point he was shot by Tex in the back. And then when Tex caught him, Tex stabbed the living shit out of him, and also beat the fuck out of him with a gun too. Because the butt of the gun, the broken butt of the gun, he hit the gun that Tex had to shoot with was a .22 revolver with a long barrel. That was Charlie Manson's gun, and Charlie got it. I forget where Charlie got it from, but he got it from somebody. But so anyway, Frykowski runs out the door trying to escape, and he's shot by Tex, and then Tex overruns him and stabs the living shit out of him and beats the fuck out of him too. Like, Frykowski really, really got it bad. He got the shit beat out of him and stabbed the shit out of him. And then at some point, Tex allegedly had to go help Krenwinkel and finish killing Abigail Folger too. And but regardless of what, because there's other people who speculate, or at least they did speculate, that that they went back and killed them later. But that's ridiculous. I mean, that is ridiculous, because my assertion is that this was a very fast event. This happened very quickly. It didn't span hours and hours of time. This happened within minutes. They killed quickly, and they were doing that. Now, the speculation is, I am a supporter of the drug burn theory, because there's a bunch of theories of what happened. The official story is a helter-skelter narrative, and that was just it was a random attack. They didn't know who they were killing, and blah blah blah, which is bullshit. And that was exposed by Tom O'Neill brilliantly, that Vincent Bugliosi was lying. I mean, the whole case. The reason this case is so fascinating is because it basically shows the depths of corruption and hedonism of Hollywood. But the cops, not only the cops in L.A., like the LAPD, but the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office too. It's two different regions of cops. They were both so corrupt. And the court system, it was just so corrupt. I mean, Charlie Manson basically got railroaded and convicted in an effort to protect Hollywood, basically. But they really, Charlie should never have been sent to jail for as long as he was. He should have been sent to jail because he was a criminal, but not for, he shouldn't have got more than like probably 8 years for what he did, because he was an accessory to murder. The thing that really fucks Charlie over is the next night at the house of the LaBiancas, he was actually on the scene. Because Charlie was never on the scene of the Cielo murders while people were being murdered. It's speculated he went there after, but that's kind of, I don't know if he would have done that. It's insane, But that's, neither here nor there for this topic. But at the next night at the LaBiancas, he was on the scene. But then he left before the killings took place. And then they killed them there, which was another extremely brutal crime. But I'm not going to talk about that one tonight, because the main thing I'm talking about is just the Cielo Drive thing and what happened at Sharon Tate's house. So it's my speculation that it was very quick killings. They killed Stephen Parent. The noise of that alerted Jay Sebring. Jay Sebring went to the front porch, was immediately shot and attacked by Tex. And then Sharon Tate, hearing that commotion, opened the door, came out to investigate, and was also immediately attacked by Tex. And then she tried to escape and run, and she ended up, tripping over the couch and falling to where she was finally found in front of the couch, where they tried to hang her, and she bled out. Now, the key thing about, again, where she was found, I'm going to repeat this, is that most of Sharon's blood loss happened where she was found in front of the couch, because the puddle of blood was thick and massive where she was found, deeply, deeply set into the rug. So she definitely bled out where she was. Now, the thing about the hanging is that the coroner's report says that all of her wounds, including the abrasion on her neck from the rope of trying to be hanged, happened while she was still alive. So none of her wounds were post-mortem. Same thing with all the Cielo victims. All of their wounds happened while they were still living. None of them were post-mortem. So that happened, and then they left. Now, there's stories of screams being heard later in the night, because what happened after that, this is important too, and this kind of supports the drug burn robbery, because Tom O'Neill talks about this, but it's not in the book. You have to listen to this online. But allegedly, what happened is the same victims who were killed at Cielo Drive, Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Frykowski, were also at Jay Sebring's house the previous night, eating dinner. And what happened was there was a power failure. Somebody cut the... Now, you have to listen to this story. They had a proto-cable system at the time. It was very expensive, like a cable television system. They had a proto-cable system at the time. It was very, very expensive, and the cable went out. And as the cable went out, there was a bunch of other stuff, too, that was... Like, Jay Sebring's house was wired with this pretty elaborate system to where he could control all the lights from his chair, basically. I mean, it was really elaborate, but it was also very simple too. It was all controlled by basically a phone-like wire that was cut at the house. So, but what happened when that wire was cut outside the house is all the lights in the property just lit up. So that scared. So basically, what happened is somebody cut that wire the night before the killings. And then when the lights came on, it scared the fuck out of them, and they took off. Okay, so basically, the story of the Manson killings could have been a different story, and they could have been killed the previous night at Jay Sebring's house instead of at Cielo Drive. So, but when the lights came on, it scared the fuck out of them. Now, this is documented. This is documented in police reports. This is documented from Tom O'Neill, from the lawyer who actually installed the system. That night, that he's on record with Tom O'Neill saying what happened and stuff like that. And you can go listen to this right now, because Tom O'Neill has an Instagram page and a Facebook page where he repeatedly posts new videos all the time is really, really fascinating. Tom O'Neill is relentless, man. This guy, just buy his book because you'll want to after you find out what happened. It's just so good. But now, what happened after the murders, when the killers left, they were ditching evidence. They changed their clothes. They were throwing clothes over cliffs and all kinds of shit. But what they ended up doing is they ended up going to a house that there was coincidentally one street above Jay Sebring's house. And what happened at this property was there was a property there. They approached the property to get the garden hose. They started washing the blood off their bodies and stuff. But remember, this is past midnight that this is going on. So they started washing the blood off their bodies and all that shit. And the people in the house came out. They woke up, or they were up, or whatever the hell happened. But they came out and caught them, and they were approaching them, and they ended up taking off. And they called cops too. They called the cops on them. So they basically screwed the fuck out of there and got out of there. But this street happened one street above Jay Sebring's house. So the speculation is that they were going back to Jay Sebring's house to either get drugs or money that they didn't find at the Cielo Drive house. And this is no coincidence, but being caught cleaning themselves off with the garden hose foiled that plan. So the speculation was they were going to clean themselves off the garden hose and then probably go to Jay Sebring's house through the woods or something like that and go and get the drugs that were alleged to be at Sebring's house, because Sebring was a coke dealer. He was known as a candy man. This is another part of it you can look into. There's works by Nicholas Schreck and other people and stuff who really get into this angle. And I subscribe to that. I think it was a drug burn. But where I differ from the other people, because other people think it was a drug burn, but it was an accidental murder, right? So other people think they went there to buy drugs and things got out of hand, and then they end up killing everybody. I don't think that. I think that they were going there to kill them specifically and steal the drugs and money. And there's one thing you got to realize. This house at Cielo Drive was notorious. It was a notorious party house. Basically, that house at Cielo Drive, in both the music and the movie industry, and there was a lot going on at this house. This was not innocent people. They were involved in a lot of crazy shit, like pornography. Because pornography was illegal at the time, and they were filming pornography there, all kinds of wild fucking shit. They were involved in drugs. Who knows what was going on there. Even in Hollywood, even in the hedonistic view of Hollywood, this house was considered to be like over the top. And the people who were interviewed like shortly after the murders weren't surprised at all that they were eventually, that the people who lived there, that something bad happened there. There was no surprise, because this house was just, they were going, they were just out of control basically. And it was basically that house, Cielo Drive, Cass Elliott's house, and Jay Sebring's house was sort of like a non-stop party. They were partying all the time. They were selling drugs. They were doing all kinds of crazy shit, never ending. And it was just over-the-top hedonism. And Polanski himself, they were into hardcore. Polanski was friends with Hugh Hefner and Steve McQueen and all these A-list celebrities. Right? This is a big, big place, and they. If the truth came out of what was really going on at that house, it would have just blown the doors off of Hollywood. Like all the stuff we know today about Hollywood and the hedonism and the child rape and the fucking everything like that. If that happened back then, it may have really hurt Hollywood more than now, because of whatever happened. So that's what happened with that, and. But the thing was, this is so. But my speculation again is that this was a premeditated killing. They went there to kill specifically. They went there to kill them, but also rob them. Now, there's one thing you got to keep in mind about the robbery aspect. Whatever happened, they found something there. They found enough there to keep them from ransacking the house, because the house at Cielo Drive was not ransacked. So if you're thinking, if it was just a robbery and they didn't find anything there, they would have ransacked the place looking for it. But whatever happened, the stuff was probably in plain sight, enough to keep them at bay, or whatever. Or no, maybe Jay Sebring told him there was nothing there and it was all at his house. Who knows what happened? But whatever happened, the house was not ransacked. but it was hit fast. You know, Stephen Penn, you know, they were killed quickly and they left quickly. And but as far as the screaming that was heard later in the night, now there's one thing you got to keep in mind too, and this is from Nicholas Schreck, is that allegedly Cass Elliot went to the house at some point, because the killings happened at midnight, and then the bodies were first found, officially found by the maid, Winifred Chapman, at 8:30 in the morning. Right, so that was when the bodies were officially found at that time. But allegedly, Cass Elliot went to the house at one point during the time between then, and found the bodies. And then she later told people that she found the bodies before the cops came, and blah blah blah. Now you got to keep in mind Cass Elliot. Now, why was Cass Elliot going there? Well, it's a Friday night at one of the biggest party and drug houses in Hollywood, and the phone wires were cut. So Tex Watson, before, just like the night before at Sebring's house, the phone wires were cut at Cielo Drive. And so they were probably trying to call Cielo Drive to score some drugs or whatever they were doing. And then when they couldn't get through, Cass Elliot, just being either wanting drugs or just being a concerned friend, could have showed up to the house and then found the bodies. And now, at some point, because people think that Folger and Frykowski were killed later, and one of the reasons they say that is because there was a really loud scream heard at like 3 in the morning or something like that. Now that could have been Cass Elliot. Cass Elliot could have showed up to the house, found the bodies all over the place, found her friends butchered and murdered in the house, and screamed. Now keep in mind, Cass Elliot is the singer of the Mamas and Papas. Cass Elliot is a big woman. She has extremely powerful lungs. So if she found the body, and it's normal for women to scream in situations like that. You know, women are natural screamers. So if you walk up and see your friends butchered in the house, you were going to scream. And that's exactly what she did. She screamed bloody murder. And then somebody heard that. Okay? And then she, of course, left. and then she left and did that. Now there's another avenue. Now this is another part of the Tom O'Neill side of things, and this is Reeve Whitson. Now Reeve Whitson is an extremely fascinating character. Now it's alleged that Reeve Whitson went to the house also at some point before the bodies were officially found, and found the bodies and stuff like that. And then there was another thing, allegedly a shootout may have happened there. Now my speculation of what may have happened at this point is people did go back to the house, because there was a pair of glasses found on the scene that didn't belong to anybody, and it's alleged that those glasses were put there to throw the cops off, right? And one of the reasons why people allegedly went back to the house after, is to sort of help clean up the scene, like wipe prints off and stuff like that, which they didn't do a good job if that's what happened, because they found Tex Watson's print on the door, on the front door, and a bunch of other stuff. So they were able to definitively link Tex Watson and Krenwinkel there, I'm pretty sure. And, through evidence, through fingerprint evidence. So whatever they did when they went back there, they didn't do a good job of it. And, but it's alleged that somebody went back there, and then Reeve Whitson showed up, because, Reeve Whitson was involved with, allegedly, CIA, FBI, and stuff like that. He was connected somehow. Now because there's things where Reeve Whitson wasn't. It's been pointed out that Reeve Whitson allegedly wasn't officially on the payroll of the CIA or FBI or anything like that, but he could have been an agent. He could have been an asset for them, being paid like under the table as a contractor or something like that, or whatever, because he had the skills and whatnot. And he was you really got to look into Reeve Whitson, but he was a very clandestine guy who was so involved with what he's doing. He divorced his beautiful Swedish wife and daughter and never talked to them for 20 or 30 years or something like that, because he was very, very involved in underground stuff. And he said that his wife and child could be used against him because of the type of work he does, so he basically abandoned them, just because it was too dangerous for them. That's what he said. And then, but it's alleged that he went onto the property. Now, he may have found these guys on the scene, fucking with the scene, and then he called out, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" Right? because there's also another speculation that there was an argument in the morning, early in the morning hours. There was a very heated argument that took place. Remember, this is in a valley. This is in a canyon. So, and this is on top of a hill, so anything that's going on is going to carry over the canyon. There's all the properties around there can hear what's going on, right? So you got to look at what's going on, where this is. But now, what could have happened? This is the speculation, but he could have walked in on these people altering the scene, and then he could have called out, "Hey, stop! What the fuck?" Right? You know, or something like that. "Hey, stop! What are you doing? I'll shoot!" Whatever the fuck. And then they took off, and then he shot at them with his gun. And then now there's also alleged that there was a back alley pathway that led, you know, in back of the guest house down through the canyon down to a cul-de-sac to get out there. It's alleged that there was this alleyway, this pathway, the hidden pathway out there. Now, Reeve Whitson could have walked onto these people, cleaned the scene. These people could have took off on the pathway and ran out, and then he could have shot at them while they were running and whatnot. And then Reeve Whitson left, and the thing about Reeve Whitson is, allegedly he called, like Sharon Tate had a photographer that was always around taking pictures of her, because Sharon Tate was a Hollywood, up-and-coming, rising Hollywood star, married to Roman Polanski, and she was fucking beautiful too. So she was always having her picture taken, you know. And there's a photographer, I can't think of his name, like some Iranian guy, like Hatami or something like that. Hattori Hatami. It kind of sounds Japanese, but I think it's Iranian. But Reeve Whitson called him at 7 in the morning, saying, all frantic and shit, saying that Sharon was just murdered, and the whole house is full of bodies and shit like that. And this happened an hour and a half before the bodies were officially found by Winifred Chapman at 8:30. So we have two people who have speculated to have found the bodies in the crime scene before the official crime scene at 8:30. And then one of them is Cass Elliot, who could have been responsible for the scream, and the other one is Reeve Whitson, who could have been responsible for the gunfire that was heard later in the night. So you have all these factors. One is the attempt at Jay Sebring's house the previous night, where phone wires and cable wires were cut, but it was foiled because techs cut the wrong wire, turned the lights on, scared the fuck out of them, and they left. And then the actual murder itself, where the phone wires were cut, and then Steve Parent was shot. That commotion causes Jay to come out. Jay's immediately shot and dropped, and that commotion causes Sharon to come out and investigate. Sharon's immediately attacked, bled out, runs for her life back in the house, trips over the couch, lands in where she was, stabbed, hanged, and then where she bled out. Frykowski and Folger are attacked, and they both run. One runs out the back door, one runs out the front door, but they're both caught and killed. And then they leave. And then Tex Watson and the girls end up going to one street, down the street, one street above Jay Sebring's house to wash off their clothes and blah, blah, blah. And then, which is really coincidental, and then that's the story of that. So that's my take on what happened at Cielo Drive, August 8th, 1969, at the Tate LaBianca murders, and that's what I think happened. So thanks for listening, and if you have any clue what's going on, congratulations. If not, again, just go online and look at this stuff. Look at Charles Manson, the official story. Watch the Tom O'Neill videos on Joe Rogan. You can actually see shorter clips on YouTube of the Tom O'Neill and Joe Rogan if you want to do that, but I encourage you to go to Spotify and watch the whole thing with Joe Rogan. It's fascinating. And then buy the book, too. Yeah, I'm pimping this book because Tom O'Neill put everything into this book. And it took him 20 years to write it. It's like, in the story of what he had to go through to get this book out there, it's just over the top, man. So if you do find yourself interested in it, just don't steal the book online or whatever. Just, help the fucking guy out, buy it, This is one case where I definitely support the author because the work that went into it was just really, really, really intense. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.